can go ahead and get started. My name is Mrs. Bauman. I'm one of the counselors here at Fisher's, and I'm going to help lead our session today with Mr. Swain.
Hey guys, I'm Mr. Swain.
So thanks for joining us today. We're also going to record our session today. We really encourage you guys as we're talking, feel free to put questions in the chat. Our goals for you today are to be able to identify any sources of stress that you have. And then also by the end of our session, make a game plan for getting back on track with your grades. So I would definitely have a piece of paper handy and a pencil just so you can maybe take some notes. We are going to have some things that you need to record so that we can respond to. So we'll just kind of dive right in. So if you're going to move to the next slide, perfect. So when we're talking about stress, stress isn't always negative. We have what we call positive stress that inspires you to act. And we have negative stress that actually demotivates you. So if you look at this continuum of stress here, we've got in the slide, you see on the green end, when you have too little stress, sometimes that's when you're inactive, you're more laid back. And then when you get to the yellow, orange, and red, that's when you start seeing that point of exhaustion. So if you're in the chat today, if you want to enter in the chat where you are today, green, you're feeling pretty laid back. You're not feeling too overwhelmed right now with stress. Yellow is you're feeling motivated. So yellow would be more motivated. Orange would be feeling exhausted. Red would be at that point of feeling anxious, feeling angry, at the point of just feeling like a breakdown. I know I've got a couple of you guys directly to me. If you don't want to post it in the public chat, that's fine too. If you want to just direct message to me, that's fine. So we've got some green, some orange, red, great. Orange, awesome. So we want to have you at the end of this in the green, yellow area, because we want you to be motivated to make a plan, but we don't want to have you at the red point where you're just exhausted and you feel overwhelmed. I've got a couple of slightly past yellow into orange. So when you think about stress right now, I want you to take a piece of paper and I want you to write down what are the two things that are causing you the most stress in your life right now. So two things, and you can put them in the chat too if you want. But two things that are causing you to feel the most negative stress or positive stress. Great. So it looks like grades are a concern, just feeling overwhelmed, too much to do. So I think when we think about stress, we have to think about how our thoughts surround those stressors. And I do want to give you an example of positive stress versus the negative stress. So when we think about, like, if a basketball game was happening and it was the end of the game and your team is down by 2 and you're up to shoot the final, you're on the line trying to shoot the final basket, right? That's a stress that you feel. And we would say that's in the yellow zone because it's a positive stress. You feel very motivated, but you don't feel in the red zone where you feel like you're just going to completely break down. So that's where we see some positive stress versus that anxiety, that red level. When you're in the red level, sometimes you just are completely paralyzed. And that might be where you feel right now in relation to your grades. So we kind of think about how are you going to deal with those stressors. So if you're in the orange red right now, and you've identified your area of stress being your grades or academics, we have to have you think about how you're going to tackle that so that you can make a game plan going forward. And that will be part of our presentation today. We want everyone to leave with like a specific game plan of how they're going to tackle that stress. I think it's also important to think about times that you've been in the green or the yellow zone. So when you've had moments of stress and you've been able to have a positive outcome from that stress. So you've been able to, it's motivated you to do really well. And that's our goal again for you by the end of the time today. So thinking about, and you can write down on your notes too, what are you currently doing that's working for you? So how are you managing that stress right now? If you want to move to the next slide, Mr. Swain. So some of sometimes when we have that toxic stress, in order to not be paralyzed and feel like we can move forward and we're not overwhelmed, we have to have some coping strategies that help us in those times of stress. So these are 4 main coping strategies I know I use a lot with some of my students. Having just a simple time to reflect on past times that you were successful in moments of stress, that can really elicit some positive motivation within you. Thinking of some positive self-talk. So instead of thinking, I always fail geometry tests, thinking, well, last time, I was able to get this number of questions correct. So I think that my goal this next time for my test is to increase that number of test questions that I get right. A positive chat with a friend. I know it's so isolating right now with COVID and everything else, but just reaching out to a friend and having a positive chat with them about how you're feeling. Most likely they're feeling really similar. I know as colleagues here in the counseling department, we share about how we're feeling, and it does help you feel a little bit more motivated when you know other people are going through it. And then the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique is also awesome. So I'm gonna have you go to the next slide, and this kind of details it. And this is what we call a grounding activity. So when you're highly stressed, you are in the part of your brain called the amygdala, which is where your emotions lie. Okay, in order to make a plan and be in a positive part of stress, you need to be in your frontal lobe, which allows you to have concrete planning. And so when you do an activity like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it allows you to shut down the emotional part of your brain and reignite the part of your brain that allows you to do executive functioning skills like planning, organization, thinking positively. So with this activity, I want you to do this here on your own. So you can, sometimes we start this activity by taking 2 big deep breaths. So let's all do that together today. So take a big deep breath, let it out. And this helps me because I'm talking too quickly. And then a second one, and let it out. So I want you to close your eyes. Okay. Actually, no, sorry. Keep your eyes open for the first one. I want you to look around your room. What are 5 things that you see right now? So you can look for details such as like a pattern on the ceiling tiles or something in your room, the way a light reflects off a surface. So 5 things that you can see. Next, I want you to think of 5 things that you can feel around you. So you can even pick up an object, examine it, see how it feels. Then what are 3 things that you can hear right now? Might be my voice, it might be a ticking clock, traffic in the background. 2 things you can smell. So maybe it's an air freshener, a candle, something like that in your room. And then 1 thing that you can taste. With this one, I always think of like, whenever I give an example of like a sour gummy. When I think of a sour gummy, I automatically can kind of feel what that tastes like. So when you go through this process of doing this grounding technique, it really allows you to be in a state of calm. And that's what we wanted for you guys today, and why we kind of did this with you right now, is we wanted you to be in a state of calm so that we all can make a plan going forward and make sure that you're on track to tackle the rest of this semester. At the end of the 3rd quarter is today. We've got great plans to kind of move forward from here. So really our goal by the end of this time is that you have a plan to kind of work forward. I'm going to move to the next slide. So as part of that plan moving forward is you have to recognize what your biggest distractions are. Because I know each and every one of you wants to be successful at school. We love that feeling of like, oh, I just did amazing on that test, or I got in all my assignments. Everyone wants to have that feeling. But sometimes our distractions stand in the way. And so that might be not being organized, poor time management. I know Fridays, we were even hesitant to meet at 11 because I know Fridays are a day a lot of students like to just sleep in. So sleep can sometimes be a distraction. A job, if you're working a job, friends, social life. And I think friends and social life are super important. I'm not saying to get rid of those. I want you to keep those. But you have to think about if they are distracting you during the time you're supposed to be working on things. And then last, most popular is your phone, right? So your phone, if I have to work on something I need a lot of concentration on here at school, I put my phone in my purse. I put it away where it's not even out on my desk. There's research studies that says your amount of concentration on a task goes down by 60% when you even have your phone on the same surface where you're working. So not even that you're looking through it, but it's on the same surface. So I want you on your paper just to write down what is your biggest distraction right now when it comes to class. And I have had a few students tell me they were like, they're virtual and they were playing video games even during class. And so that might be a distraction for you. But write down your biggest distraction. You also can put it in the chat as well. So I think now that we've identified kind of our emotions and our distractions and our stress, I think it's time to kind of make a plan and kind of get back on track. So I will turn it over to Mr. Swain.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to kind of talk through some ways to make a plan to help you get caught up, specifically on schoolwork. And so we're gonna talk through some ideas on how to get back on track here with your grades and just help you feel like you have a sense of control over your situation. I know when you don't feel that way, it can be pretty upsetting to feel like it's hopeless or like it's too far gone. So let's talk through a couple of ideas surrounding that plan. So first of all, we're mostly talking about missing work for most of you. If the grades are low or if you're behind on assignments, we want to get focused on making up assignments and getting caught up in the class. And when you do that, it's really important that we pick out the highest point value assignments and assignments that teachers are willing to take. And we're going to look at some examples of this here in a second, but that's important to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind as you prioritize getting back on track is to stay focused in all of your classes. I know it's easy to kind of zero in on one and try to do the most that you can in that one class, but then we got to keep all of the all the classes in a place where they're either getting caught up or we're not getting further behind. Also, I think it's good to mix in some short and some long assignments. Getting too focused on one long assignment can feel disheartening because you don't see the progress. And then while we do that, it is important to try to stay current on the current work. And I think this is really a hard part for students because they want to stay current on the current assignments and then also get caught up. And really that's going to come down to getting to dedicating some extra time and kind of using extra time outside of the school day to get caught up and stay current on the current work. Tiered intervention time and Fridays would be good times for that extra time. And I think the most important thing is to just get started. I know as I've talked with students, some of them just kind of feel like they're stuck. They know they're behind, but they just can't take that first step towards getting caught up. So pull open skyward and just get started and looking at what's missing. The other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about, the block schedule is new. Well, not anymore. It's March. You guys have been doing it a while, but I don't think we ever really talked about ways to keep track of homework and keep track of assignments now that we're on an alternating day schedule. So Mrs. Bauman put together this little calendar for the week, and I think it's really helpful to kind of think about how things are due, when things are due, when you see certain teachers during the week. This will give you an idea of mapping out the week and when things are going to be coming due. Notice on Friday, Mrs. Bauman put in there a wake up time. I like that, 8 o'clock, get up and get started, get something accomplished right away, check Canvas and work on some work. And then in the afternoon, use that time to either meet with teachers or to review assignments and get things handed in. But then Monday through Thursday, I think this is just a good way to map out your week. And like the old school planner that we used to use back in the day, this is a good way to write or type in your assignments that are due during the week. Also, the other thing she put on here on Thursday, I think this is a good idea, is just to reach out to teachers to see if they're available to meet on Friday. And so that would be a good thing to do as well. All right, so we're going to kind of talk through two different student scenarios to kind of get an idea of what this looks like. These are actual student grades right now. So this hypothetical student, Matt, is behind in all of his classes. This class in particular, as you can see here, it's at a 7%. And Matt's feeling pretty hopeless to get caught up in all of his classes, especially this one, because it's really far behind. But I do want to point out, if you look over here, you can see that in this class, the major assessments are worth 80% of the grade. All right. And Matt's missing all 3 of the major assessments. He hasn't taken the test, he hasn't done an essay, and didn't do an in-class essay. So if Matt were to get caught up in this class, it looks like it would just focus, he should focus on these 3 main assessments, and 80% of his grade then would be caught up. So instead of going down here and doing these 5-point assignments, it makes sense for Matt to get caught up on these 3 big things. So just prioritizing the major point assignments. And we'll contrast that with this student, Erin. She has a 55% in one class and then a D+ in another. And she's just feeling behind and kind of feeling like it's going to be hard to get caught up in these 2 classes while still doing all the work in her other classes. So her situation's a little bit different. She has 6 missing assignments, and they're all worth kind of about the same thing, 5 points here and there. Okay. But this is stressing Erin out. She's not used to getting D's and used to getting A's and B's. So for this example, it might make sense to work on all the assignments, maybe like 2 a day, and get them caught up. And that's a little bit different than 3 100-point assignments like the other student. So your situation might look different. You might be, really close to passing, and you just have a couple things to catch up. So just think through that as you look through Skyward and you strategize how you want to get caught up. Kind of just think through what your situation looks like with the missing work. Let's see here. So to kind of wrap up the presentation part of this, just to review a little bit, just kind of identify the things that are stressing you out. If being behind on the schoolwork is making you stressed, kind of identify that, manage the emotions that are associated with that. And then, like we just said, we want to identify the priorities. What's most important? What should I do first? What should I do second? And then get started. I think that's the key to all this, is just get one thing done, one thing accomplished, and that'll lead to another. Mrs. Bauman, did you have anything to add? Anything you felt like we skipped over that we should share?
Well, I feel like just a real big thing is, in order to keep up on your current assignments, I would not do more than 2 past assignments every day that you have a current class. Now, Fridays are different. Fridays, you might be able to tackle, 4+ assignments, but on a Monday through Thursday, when you're trying to keep up in your current classes, do a maximum of 2 assignments. And also check with your teacher before you tackle those assignments to make sure they will still allow them for credit. That's another, you don't want to spend a bunch of time doing an assignment that's not going to be allowed for credit. Absolutely. The only other tip I'd give about block schedule is, so if you have a class on Monday and the homework's not due until Wednesday, do not wait until Tuesday night. You need to do the homework on the day that it is assigned, because that information is fresh in your mind, and then that gives you a whole day if you need to get in touch with your teacher to find out how to do the assignment. So those would be my only other tips, but you covered everything.
We will open it up if anybody has any questions or any comments, or any part of the presentation that they want to talk through. You can put those in the chat, or if anybody wants to unmute and talk, that's great too. We'll pause for a second here.